Eric Mutua, thank you very much for coming and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mutua, you are the chairman of the Law Society of Kenya. And I don't think I need to explain what that is, the LSK. I think all our viewers are aware of your existence.
That's correct.
In the very recent past, you have published a document entitled Realizing Integrity Law, Walking the Talk. And basically, the topic of that conversation is revealing the names of people who've done something wrong, and by virtue of that fact, they oughtn't to be in positions of power, of leadership, because they've done something wrong. You've published the names, 500 names, but what's going to happen next?
Well, let's start by saying that these names are available. We've picked names from reports of parliamentary committees, reports of commissions where certain persons have been named adversely.
Something like the Ndungu report on land,
yes, that is
for
part
example.
of it.
Yes.
That is actually,
Right.
If you look at the Ndungu report and look at the names of the persons who are there, we've replicated in this report. Why are we doing this? Because many people have not even seen the Ndungu report. Many people have not seen the Akiwumi report. There are so many reports where they are in shelves somewhere.
They're not in the public domain.
They are not in the public domain for certain reasons. So we've been able to get inside and get this information. Of course, now, courtesy of the Constitution, where now this information should be available to the public. And we have been able to pick that information and say, this is what these reports say. They have mentioned John, for instance, in the report that he was not cleared in one of these scandals.
But to what end? I mean, John's still going to be maybe wanting to be governor of Busia County the next week.
Yes. Now, it's not a matter of publishing the report,
right,
and then you leave it at that. We have now devised a way where our 10,000 lawyers, we have devised what we call pro bono work, where we have asked them to take 3 days and bring evidence that within 3 days you've gone to your village and said, look, we have this report, so-and-so is running for this position, but he's not been cleared in this report.
So you're informing people?
Yes, we're informing.
You're informing people?
Yes.
Right.
And then we are trying to tell the people, look, this is civic education, because we've not been able to get anything in court in terms of, remember, we wanted to go to court and say, yes, these people cannot run.
Right.
But we looked at the timelines
right,
between now and the election. We have 1 month.
Right.
We look at the possibilities of decisions in court, and we thought it is not possible. We have also looked at the fact that the institutions which would have undertaken vetting of political leaders, they are either weak or probably because of the law, they are not clear as to who is supposed to do what. With all that in mind, we decided the best thing now and the best option which is available to the public and to the Law Society of Kenya is to tell the public, like, these are the names, and we don't want this.
I take your point entirely.
Yes.
And without repercussion,
yes,
it seems to me that if you sort of named my name in adverse circumstances, I'd be out to get you.
Of course, if there will be threats to sue, but what we have said is this is not something new. We've just said, look, you are named in this report.
Right.
You are not cleared in this report. And we think, based on that, then you do not fit to be a leader in terms of the Chapter 6 of the Constitution on integrity.
But the wider conclusion is that the reform process in this country is indeed in dire straits. We talk about it in superb rhetoric, but everything is in a shambles, so to speak.
Of course, John, you agree with me that reforms don't come in a day. Or the people struggle to get where we are, historically, that we've done like 15, 20 years. Implementing and for people to change as required, we expect it to take another 10 or so years. It's not going to be done now because we have a constitution, because we have a legal framework which allows these reforms. I like what John Githongo says, that it's like an elephant which has a poisoned arrow. It will go round, and it will eventually fall and die. But in the process, it is supposed to have so many repercussions. So many trees would be stumbled on. So many people may be stumbled on. By the time it dies, then there's a lot of damage which is done on the way by the elephant. So it is not something which is going to happen now, and it is important to know that as law society, as institutions of goodwill, we need to have people to come out and say, yes, we do not have this mechanism. Yes, we cannot go to court, but there is something which can be done in terms of civic education. I can tell you, if we undertake civic education properly, not necessarily through the lawyers, but properly civic education to the public, I think we'll get good leaders in Parliament.
Mr. Mutua, it's always been a curious thing to me that you as a lawyer would argue that it's in your interest to defend whoever comes to you because it's your duty, be I a murderer, an assassin, a rapist, it's your duty. Now it seems to me that this whole process of prevaricating is aided and abetted by the legal profession itself. Because if you are out to get me, then I get a smart lawyer like yourself perhaps. There's the dread word injunction. You will go out and have an injunction. And the process has been self-perpetuating. The names have been there. Even before you wrote them, we knew vaguely who they were. But nothing's happened. And I'm trying to suggest that it's the common good. It keeps you in business. It keeps you as a fairly rich and well-off lawyer.
There's that notion which is misconceived that when you get a lawyer...
Very rich lawyer,
yes,
perhaps.
Yes. When you get a lawyer, the purpose of this lawyer is probably to get you out of a problem. That is not the purpose of a lawyer. The lawyer and the training of a lawyer and the mandate of a lawyer is to make sure that you are accorded what we call due process. That if you have a right
Sorry, I beg to differ. That's
yes.
a legal phrase. When I watch my sort of sitcoms on TV,
yes.
the idea of a good lawyer is to get the murderer off on some technicality.
No, that is
and
not.
And then he's paid millions for so doing. Fraudsters, people who've done, we read about them all the day. So I think that's maybe what you do in your textbooks, but the reality doesn't quite bear that out.
I doubt that is that is what the perception out there is, that the idea of a good lawyer is one who is going to get you out of a murder case. But that is not the idea. The idea of the law is to make sure that you are accorded what you're supposed to be accorded as the terms of your rights.
But in our experience, Mr. Mutua, part of this word due process, and I'm sure I'm not the first to sort of suggest this, the due process might be that in order to make my case favorable to the judge who's hearing the case, palms are greased and exchanges are made so that you are in a way complicit in the perpetuation of corruption.
We have some lawyers who are corrupt.
So why haven't you published a list of them?
We have published.
Oh, sorry.
Go to the website, you'll see the names of the lawyers. We have struck out the names of lawyers. We have suspended.
But I haven't gone to your website, but I have read in the newspapers of lawyers whose names haven't been struck out. And we're not here to name names and shame, because we can't name everybody in 22 minutes, who are running for very high political office. Now, are you going to take refuge in your analogy about the elephant and say, let's take long enough and the elephant will die?
Not really. We have, from the profession's part of it, if we have lawyers who are running and they have issues with us, we have told the public, we'll tell the public that these people cannot run. That is part of what we are saying, that we'll do pro bono exercise.
Sorry, a clarification. Who's we?
Sorry,
I'm just taking the me as the one ancient.
Yes.
Every member of the Law Society of Kenya, everybody who has the badge LSK beside their name is by definition a good lawyer. Or are there bad lawyers who are still within the Law Society of Kenya? Have you expelled them? Have you expelled the bad ones?
We have bad lawyers, but who have not...
As in criminal lawyers. Let's use another adjective.
Well, if you say criminal lawyers, what you mean is that this lawyer specializes in criminality.
Let's say a lawyer...
Lawyers who are criminals, probably.
Semantics. Lawyers who are criminals. Yes, indeed.
We can't say they are criminals because
there's no due process. So we
go
back swings and roundabouts.
They are lawyers who misconduct themselves. If you have lawyers who misconduct themselves, we have a process where we discipline these lawyers through what we call the disciplinary committee. Now it's called the disciplinary tribunal, where there's a tribunal which receives complaints. And I can tell you this tribunal sits twice a month. And every time, if you look at the website today, next month you'll see a different list of people who have been suspended or who have been struck out. It's always there. And we do this every day in terms of trying to vet this lawyer. That is undertaken by the Law Society through that mechanism.
Mr. Mutua, I think, again, public perception, the idea of the Law Society, the perception, and perception is a great deal, is that somebody like yourself, the chairman of the Law Society, this is just a sort of trampoline for greater publicity. And the Law Society of Kenya is itself a very politicized and politicizing institution. How do you respond to that?
I don't think so, because people forget a lot. When you look at the history of this country in terms of reforms, you cannot mention any group of individuals working together to bring change to this country without having a lawyer in place. There would be a lawyer in that group. Look at the history. Lawyers have been jailed, lawyers have suffered because of these reforms, which Kenyans are enjoying now. And the Law Society in all this has played a very big role. In fact, I think it has played the biggest role in achieving what we have now. And that what we are doing as a Law Society now, and our mandate now, is try to protect the little that we've achieved.
Mr. Mutua, the specific interest of the moment, the elections.
Yes.
You've published a list of the bad 500.
Yes.
What else can we expect of the Law Society of Kenya in the weeks to come?
What you'll expect before the elections from the Law Society of Kenya is, one, seeing lawyers, individual lawyers, holding barazas in villages where they come from for 2-3 days, and saying, from what we see in this list, these people are not, if you're in this list, you shouldn't be elected. And they'll go one step. Yes, they'll go one step forward.
That's
yes.
your great contribution done?
Yes, they'll go one step forward to tell the public, even if your name is not...
Can I be assured that somebody from the Law Society of Kenya will go to my particular village, wherever it is, and tell my particular fellow countrymen if their baddies afoot?
Yes, if there is a lawyer within a county, a county ward.
But there must be, surely. There must be a
there are
lawyer
some places where...
No, in
Wajir, there are places where we don't have a lawyer in some of the wards.
Right.
Yes, there's some places where we have lawyers, but in every ward where there's a lawyer...
Which is a sort of savage indictment of our educational system, that we don't have such people in place.
There's some places where we don't have. I know places where we don't have.